welcome to the deep dive. So, June 12th, 2025, a really tough day. Air India Flight AI 171, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, tragically crashed in Ahmedabad.
Yeah, a terrible event. And it's still unfolding, really.
Exactly. It's more than just a headline. There's the human cost, a complex investigation. So, our mission today is simple: cut through the noise. We want to give you a fast, informed understanding of what's most important here. We'll unpack the immediate aftermath, look at the investigation's progress.
And the human side, too, which is just devastating.
Absolutely. And also analyze how Air India and the regulators responded.
Right. We've pulled together info from lots of sources: official statements, financial news like FT.com, NDTV.com for investigation updates, thetimes.co.uk for those human stories, regulatory stuff.
The whole picture.
Exactly. The aim is to give you that complete, nuanced view quickly, so you can grasp the gravity, the details, without wading through hours of reports yourself.
Okay, so let's start right after it happened. When something this big occurs, everyone wants to hear from the airline. What were those first official words from Air India?
Well, those initial statements are always really critical, aren't they? They set the tone. Often they aim to reassure, provide some immediate context.
Right.
And in this case, Air India chair and Chandrasekaran, he came out pretty quickly. He emphasized that the plane, Flight AI-171, and its engines had what he called an unblemished service history.
Unblemished, okay.
Yeah. He specifically pointed out the right engine was basically new installed March 2025, and the left one was serviced back in 2023. And critically, he also mentioned the captain's experience, over 11,500 flight hours. That's a lot.
That is extensive. And the CEO, Campbell Wilson, he backed that up.
He did. He affirmed that all systems appeared normal before takeoff. They also flagged the aircraft's last major inspection, June 2023.
So over a year prior, but maintenance schedules are complex.
Right. And the next big one wasn't scheduled until December 2025 anyway. So the clear message was, look, this was a well-maintained plane, experienced crew. Everything looked fine on paper.
Okay, but then the obvious question is, if everything was so clean, why did it crash? What does that kind of initial statement actually mean for the investigation that follows?
That's the paradox, isn't it? When you start with such a strong statement about the aircraft and crew being essentially perfect,
Yeah.
it forces investigators to look deeper, beyond obvious mechanical failure, maybe. You start thinking about more subtle things, complex interactions, maybe a combination of small factors, or even human factors that aren't immediately clear.
It sets a high bar for the investigation, though.
It does. And it's tricky for the airline, too. If findings later contradict those initial strong assurances, well, that can damage public trust. It's a real tightrope.
Okay, so despite the clean bill of health narrative, the reality on June 12th was obviously catastrophic. Which brings us squarely to the investigation itself, and specifically, the black boxes.
Absolutely. That's where the real story often lies. The flight data recorder, the FDR, and the cockpit voice recorder, the CVR, those are fundamental.
Gotta capture everything, right?
Pretty much. Objective data on how the plane was performing, what the crew was doing, saying, right up to the very end. And the good news is, both have been recovered from the site.
Okay, that's crucial. But I did read there was some concern about their condition, something about damage.
Yeah, there was. One of the units suffered some exterior damage, which always makes you worry a bit.
Understandably. Can they still get the data?
The initial assessment is hopeful. Despite the outside damage, they think the internal memory of the data itself might still be intact. They're still deciding exactly where to do the analysis. Could be India, the US, UK, Singapore. Lots of expertise available.
And who's leading the charge on this?
India's AAIB, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, is heading it up. But they're getting significant help from the UK and the US too. International cooperation is key in these situations.
And timelines. When might we hear something concrete?
They're saying a preliminary report could be ready in about a month, give or take.
Okay, so what are they actually looking at right now? What theories are on the table, or maybe even off the table already?
Well, they're definitely considering things like engine issues, maybe a loss of thrust, something like that. Also looking closely at the flaps and the landing gear systems.
Things critical during takeoff.
Exactly. What's interesting is what they've apparently ruled out so far. Bird strikes, which were speculated about early on, seem to be off the list for now.
Right, that narrows it down somewhat.
It does. It's all about methodically analyzing that data from the recorders testing hypotheses, eliminating possibilities, step by painstaking step to find out what really happened.
It's such a technical process and obviously vital for safety going forward, but it's so important we don't lose sight of the people involved. Behind every data point, every technical detail.
There's immense human tragedy, absolutely.
Let's shift focus to that now. The human element.
It's essential. We know there was one survivor, miraculously. A British passenger, Vishwas Kumaramesh.
Just one survivor.
Yes, and tragically, he lost his brother, Ajay, in the crash. Reports say he's dealing with, well, intense survivor's guilt. You can only imagine.
That's just heartbreaking. And the crash didn't just affect those on the plane, did it? There were fatalities on the ground, too.
That's right, a truly devastating aspect. The bodies of Sarah Laban Thakur, who worked in a local canteen, and her granddaughter, Athia, they were identified about a week later. They were just on the ground when the plane came down.
Oh, that's terrible.
And there's still uncertainty. A filmmaker, Mahesh Kalawati, is still listed as missing. They're doing DNA tests now to see if he might be among the victims recovered from the ground impact area.
So much loss, so many families shattered. It really underscores the wide ripple effect of something like this.
It really does. It touches so many lives,
Yeah.
irrevocably.
Okay, so moving from that immediate, devastating human impact, let's look at the broader picture again. How does an incident like this ripple through the airline industry itself and the regulatory world? What actions did we see from Air India and the authorities?
Well, these kinds of events trigger immediate responses, often as a precaution. Air India took a pretty significant step. They grounded about 15% of their international wide-body fleet.
15%? That's quite a chunk.
It is, for extra safety inspections. It's not just a safety measure, it's also, frankly, a huge operational and financial hit. But it signals how seriously they're taking this, trying to reassure the public even before they know the exact cause.
And they've pledged ongoing support for the families.
Yes, they've reiterated their commitment to supporting the victims' families and cooperating fully with the investigation. Standard but important steps.
And the regulators, India's Aviation Authority, the DGCA, what have they done?
They've acted too. They issued what's called a show cause notice to Air India's CEO, Campbell Wilson.
Can you quickly explain what that means? A show cause notice?
Sure, it's basically a formal demand from the regulator. They're asking the CEO to explain, to justify certain aspects potentially related to safety oversight. Why did things happen the way they did?
So it puts the pressure on airline leadership.
Exactly. They have to provide a satisfactory explanation or potentially face consequences down the line. And beyond that, the DGCA also ramped up random inspections of Dreamliners across other airlines in India too.
Proactive checks across the board.
Right, trying to catch any potential issues fleet-wide even before they have the final analysis from this specific crash.
Okay, so pulling it all together.
Mhm.
Where do things stand right now, and what are the next key milestones we should be watching for?
The biggest immediate thing is that preliminary report we mentioned, expected in about a month, roughly. That hinges on the black box analysis getting done.
And that report will give the first real clues.
It should provide the first official insights based on hard data. It won't be the final answer, but it'll be crucial. Investigators will be laser focused on things like engine thrust during takeoff, the flap and landing gear positions, and exactly what the crew was doing, what inputs they were making.
And in the meantime, that grounded portion of Air India's fleet, still under scrutiny.
Oh, absolutely. You can bet that those planes, and likely others, will face heightened scrutiny to ensure safety while the full picture emerges.
So quick recap. We had initial statements about a clean history for the plane and crew. The investigation is underway, black boxes recovered, international help involved, victims identified, though some DNA tests are pending. Air India has grounded planes, regulators are inspecting more widely. And next up, that preliminary report in about a month.
That's a good summary of where things are. Initial all clear meets tragic reality, leading to an intensive search for answers.
We really hope this deep dive has helped you cut through the complexity, giving you a solid understanding of this evolving situation, maybe a bit beyond just the headlines. We've touched on the initial statements, the investigation's core, the human cost, and the industry response.
And maybe something to think about. Given those initial reports, the unblemished history, the experienced pilot, what could that black box data possibly reveal? Could it be about how seemingly small factors, maybe things we wouldn't even think of, might interact in just the wrong way to lead to something so catastrophic, so unexpected?
A sobering thought. We invite you to reflect what part of this deep dive stood out most to you. Thanks for joining us.